Hi everyone, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect once again. Welcome back from a busy and quite an entertaining week of football. Some incredible results from the Carabao Cup there. Manchester United beating up against Leicester City by 5-2. Tottenham Hotspurs beating up against Manchester City by 2-1 to knock them out of the Carabao Cup, among other results, including that entertaining 3-2 victory for Liverpool against Brighton. That goal thriller in the second half. Anyways, beautiful football that we were treated to, especially in the wake of the weekend disappointments where Real Madrid were thrashed by 4-0 by Barcelona in the El Clasico. Probably explains why I didn't do my post-match reviews over the weekend. The result may have turned out to be more hurtful than I actually thought to myself. But anyways, we'll put all that aside and then kick things off at Manchester United because they have dominated the news all week in spite of the footballing action that we've had on the turf. Away from the footballing turf, they've been making decisions that are going to impact the club for the next couple of years. They did sack manager Erik on Monday and have moved swiftly to appoint Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon to be their next manager after he put pen to paper to a contract that will see him at Old Trafford until June 2027 and probably beyond if everything goes to plan as far as Manchester United are anticipating their things. So, Ruben Amorim is currently the interim manager. He did command them in that 5-2 victory against Leicester City and he will continue to command them in the next 3 games, one of which they will be facing Chelsea this weekend, a Europa League game in between there, and another fixture, probably, if I'm not mistaken, could be against Leicester again. So, anyways, Ruben Amorim will take over the reins at Manchester United during the November international break that will kick off on November 11th. So, he'll be taking charges at Sporting Lisbon for now or for the next 1.5 weeks, probably before he officially joins Manchester United. And once he joins Manchester United during that international break, his first game will be against newly promoted side Ipswich Town before facing on Bordeaux Clement there in the Europa League. And then we'll have a game at Old Trafford when they do face off with Everton. He's made for himself quite the reputation in such a short span of time ever since he started managing football. He will be no stranger at Old Trafford, given that in 2018, during Jose Mourinho's reign at the club, he did his managerial practices at Old Trafford for some time. So it will be a bit of a familiar ground. Perhaps I wouldn't argue that he knows things at Manchester United from A to Z, but he won't be any stranger at Carrington and at Old Trafford when he officially joins the Red Devils there. Like I said, he has built himself quite the reputation in a short time, given that he's just 39 years of age, guiding Sporting Lisbon to 2, top flight or top division titles. That's in the Primeira La Liga in Portugal there. The first coming in the 2020-2021 season, which was Sporting Lisbon's first league title in 19 years, and he did win the second in the 2023-2024 season there. So that means 2 league titles in 4 years. Quite impressive return on investment. He's managed to uplift the mood in that club as supporters are now backing the squad. We do remember he's the same manager that knocked out Arsenal last season but won out of that Europa League competition. Those games that saw, I think, William Saliba and Takehiro Tomiyasu suffer injuries that eventually cost Arsenal their Premier League title chase, for those of you that do remember those escapades. So he's quite a very entertaining young progressive manager that United have looked to on their new rebuild. It is Ineos in charge and it looks like they are making decisions quite at a fast rate. So in a nutshell, that is Ruben Amorim for you that will be taking over the reins at Manchester United. So with that said, allow us get into match day 10 of the Premier League because plenty of action will be coming your way this weekend, including a very super exciting Super Sunday, the Premier League, where Tottenham Hotspurs will be up against Aston Villa, while Manchester United will be up against Chelsea. So those are the 2 interesting fixtures that we will have on Super Sunday. And then on Monday, we'll have, I think, a London derby when Fulham meet up against Brentford. But anyways, things do kick off with Arsenal when they make the trip to St James's Park. That is in the early kickoff. Now we're having an adjustment in terms of kickoff time. We've all been accustomed that the early kickoff was kicking off at 2:30 p.m. That's East African time. Now that is going ahead by an hour. So as you all know, when we enter November through December and probably January, those hours do change or push ahead by an hour. So the early kickoff will be coming at 3:30 when Arsenal make the trip to Newcastle. At 6 sharp, then Liverpool will entertain Brighton at Anfield. Remember, these two teams just faced off each other in the Carabao Cup. The other game will come between Ipswich Town and against Leicester City, while Bournemouth will host Manchester City, who are laden with quite a good number of injuries. Southampton will be up against Everton, while Nottingham Forest will be at home against West Ham United. And then at 8:30 p.m., Crystal Palace will make the trip to Wolverhampton Wanderers. So those are the fixtures that will be coming your way on Saturday. So in terms of our preview, we'll try and look at as many games as time may allow us, but again, we'll try to be as quick as possible as we ride through this run of fixtures that will be coming our way on match day 10. Like I said, we'll kick things off where match day 10 kicks off when Newcastle host Arsenal. Now, this is going to be a very entertaining fixture. Why? Because we have two high-profile teams. Newcastle is one of those teams that has, I think, the highest number of supporters as far as English football is concerned. That is locally. So it is a very historical club facing off with Arsenal. Between the two sides, there is a bit of bad blood between them because of how the result ended in last season when Newcastle beat up against Arsenal by 1-0. Anthony Gordon scoring in the 64th minute in what appeared that before that ball is played in came from outside the line, and then there was a foul in the build-up to that game, I think by Joelinton against Gabriel Magalhaes, and then it was the same fixture that delivered Bruno Guimaraes hitting, I think, Kai Havertz with an elbow. So it's a game that was quite contentious, decisions that were put under scrutiny. So much was discussed about the decisions that were made in that game, perhaps even a little more than the game itself in terms of how the two teams, fared up in terms of their tactics and how they applied themselves at the end of the day. It is the game that saw Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta be summoned by the FA to sort of defend himself for statements that he made in the aftermath of that game. I think, if I recall so well, he said it was disgraceful in the manner in which the referee managed that game. Now, of course, when he was summoned, Arsenal lawyers did defend him by saying that he meant disgracia, which in his native language, which is Spanish, because he's Spanish by nature, means something a little different as opposed to what the FA thought he implied. Anyways, he managed to get away with it. Perhaps because Arsenal had good lawyers, but also I get the feeling that because the FA may have looked on it and said, look, referee got so many decisions here wrong today, so punishing Arteta for these comments will be double jeopardy in a way. So it's going to be that contentious. At least I do anticipate. And then the other point is that both sides do have their injury troubles to worry about. Mikel Arteta was speaking in a press conference and did say that Martin Odegaard is not available for this one. And then Ben White was a major doubt because he has not trained. He was waiting for Gabriel Magalhaes to complete at least one training session for them to decide if he can feature in that particular game. Kieran Tierney may not be available. Takehiro Tomiyasu, the fixture will come a little too early for him, as well as Ricardo Carafiori, who are all injured. So then on the other side of Newcastle, they will be without Callum Wilson, they will be without Jamal Lascelles, they will be without Seven Botman, Matt Target, and then Matthew Dubravka. All those are major doubts for this particular game for Ed Howe's side. Nonetheless, it doesn't make it any less of a contest because in the last 5 meetings, Arsenal have won 2 of the fixtures, Newcastle have won 2 as well, while the other has ended in a draw. So clearly, it's a highly contested game. Last season, Newcastle beat up against Arsenal, like I said, by goal to nil at St James's Park before Arsenal won 4-1 in the reverse fixture. So this is a game that comes at a period of time when Arsenal really need to bounce back as far as Premier League football is concerned and get some wins after suffering a defeat against Bournemouth and sharing the spoils against Liverpool in a 2-all draw. Again, in another game where they felt were hard done by the referee's decision, that is Anthony Taylor, for what he ruled out to be a foul by Jakub Kivio against Dominic Szoboszlai in the build-up to what would have turned out to be the third goal for Arsenal. And then Newcastle themselves will be looking to get back to winning ways, having lost to Chelsea by 2-1 last weekend before Newcastle went on to beat Chelsea by 2-0 at St James's Park in the Carabao Cup. So we are talking about a Newcastle side that did beat Chelsea in midweek, a very strong side in Chelsea that are very capable of beating up against an Arsenal side. They have that good midfield of Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, all industrious players that can compete against any team on a given day. And yet Arsenal will be missing, once again, their key player as far as creativity is concerned in Martin Odegaard. And then Alexander Isak, their striker, has been quite on form. He has scored twice against Chelsea in the Premier League and then in the Carabao Cup. The other goal was, I think, an own goal by Axel Disasi in that particular fixture. So it does feel like a well-balanced game. Nick Pope in that Newcastle goal is one with very definite hands that can really be relied on. Of course, they will be without Kieran Trippier, but you do feel that the likes of Fabian Schär will stand tall in that defense to provide cover. And then the likes of Lewis Hall, then they do have Harvey Barnes, you do have an Anthony Gordon, you do have a Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron. All these are players that are capable of beating up against any team on a given day. And so Arsenal will be wary of that. It also goes without saying that early kickoffs are usually never easy games for teams that usually come in as the big teams on the day. I don't know, for some reason, these are fixtures that I wouldn't say tend to favor the underdogs, but usually the underdogs compete favorably against the bigger teams in the early kickoffs. I do not know the rationale behind that or the science about it, but usually that's how it fares for big teams. It's usually the early kickoff is a very difficult game for these big teams. So Arsenal will have to worry of that. But like I said, they need to bounce back after those two bad results. Maybe Liverpool wasn't so bad, but as far as being a title contender is concerned, you'd have hoped that you would have won that game, given that it was a home game. Especially bearing in mind that after facing Newcastle, your next game will be against Inter Milan in the UEFA Champions League, which is an away game, and then come back to England and still travel to Chelsea. So very, very difficult games for the Gunners there. Despite of their injury concerns, they'll have to compete. And between Chelsea and Newcastle, as much as neither fixture is easier, one would sort of put them on the weighing scale and say perhaps the trip to Newcastle may be slightly easier than the one to Stamford Bridge, because the other one is a London derby. Let's keep that in mind. Anyways, we'll keep it at that. Do let me know what your predictions are for that particular game. I don't really know, but my gut feeling says Arsenal will edge this one by 2-1. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if it ended in a stalemate. So we'll leave it at that and then move on to Liverpool versus Brighton. That is at 6 p.m. kickoff time in the aftermath of sharing the spoils with Arsenal and then beating up against the same Brighton side in midweek by 3-2 in the Carabao Cup. Liverpool remain in good spirits as the most on-form team as far as English football is concerned. They've suffered only one loss so far this season. That was the loss against Nottingham Forest at Anfield. So they'll really be feeling good about themselves, especially that Luis Diaz did score in that fixture in midweek. Cody Gakpo scored a brace in that particular one. So, and then in the last 5 meetings between the two sides, Liverpool have beaten Brighton twice. Then they've shared the spoils, I think, twice, and then Brighton has won the other. But overall, I think there've been about 14 meetings between the two sides, Liverpool winning 8, 4 ending in draws, and Brighton just winning 2. But what that communicates is that as much as Liverpool oftentimes wins this particular fixture, it's not as easy as it may feel. Erik was, I think, on target in that midweek fixture. Danny Welbeck has been quite on form for this Brighton side this season so far. Ivan Ferguson is back playing some football. I'm not sure if Pavis Estupinan will be available and Kaoru Mitoma, but then Simon Adingra. All these are players that are capable of, hurting any side. João Pedro, all these are players that you cannot really rule out when facing the big teams. Very, very decent football that Fabian Hatzler is, coaching this Brighton side to be. Very exciting team. And then Anna Slot, we cannot take away anything from him. He's been nominated for Manager of the Month for the month of October, where I think, again, he's been immaculate. So things are really looking bright for Anna Slot, and this is a game he will be desperate really to win, to see himself move back to the summit of the Premier League, as Man City will be on the other side playing AFC Bournemouth. We'll speak about that shortly, but he will want to give himself that chance should Manchester City falter against FC Bournemouth. So, again, a very highly contested fixture. I do think that both teams will score. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool went on to win this one 3-1 at Anfield. That is where my prediction is. But as far as reservation goes, again, if it were to end in a draw, I still wouldn't be surprised because Brighton can be a very, very stubborn side. We're talking about a team that has won 2 and drawn 2 in the last 5 fixtures, while the only loss they've suffered was that 4-2 loss against Chelsea, against a Liverpool side that has been flourished, registering 4 wins and just 1 draw in the last 5. So it's going to be highly contested. But bottom line, I do feel that Liverpool will edge this one by 3 goals to 1, that Anna Slot will be the better tactician as compared to Fabian Hatzler when the 90 minutes are done. And then moving on to Manchester City, Pep Guardiola does say he is having the biggest injury crisis he has ever had as a Manchester City manager. Players like Jack Grealish, players like Savinho, players like Kevin De Bruyne are all out through injury. Oscar Bob, we all know about Rodri, we all know about Kyle Walker. All these are out through injury, while Manuel Akanji is also in that conversation. We did see him field a good number of youngsters in his midweek loss against Tottenham Hotspurs, where they lost by 2 goals to 1. They did give themselves a fairly decent chances, but Tottenham were lucky, but then Manchester City were also so open on the other side. Richarlison did miss a very golden opportunity there. Ortega was quite impressive in that goal. So they're going to be facing a Bournemouth side that didn't have any midweek engagement. Will that make them rusty? I don't know. Will that make Manchester City sharper against Bournemouth? I do not know. But Manchester City, if there's any fixture that they have dominated, it is this one versus FC Bournemouth. In the last 5 meetings between the two sides, Manchester City has won all the 5, scoring 17 goals and conceding just 4, including a 6-1 victory last season against this Bournemouth side, I think at the Etihad, and a 1-0 victory at the Vitality Stadium. So it is another away trip for Manchester City. Will it be difficult? Yes, because we're talking about a Bournemouth side that did beat up against Arsenal by 2 goals to 0 last weekend, but won before holding Aston Villa to a 1-1 draw. So they have those 2 impressive results that good inspiration enough just in time as they plan to face off with Manchester City. We all know Evan Nilsson, Justin Kluivert in there, Anton Semenyo, Phil Billing, all those players that are capable of hurting any side. So we'll wait to see what the result will be. But if you are to ask me, in spite of all the injuries, I still think that Pep Guardiola will still find a way against Bournemouth and win this particular fixture. Last weekend, they did fight their way in beating Southampton. And then they did last weekend, but won. They did fight their way into beating Wolves by 2 goals to 1. Yes, their last 2 performances in the Premier League have not been really decent, but they have been getting the 3 points, and that's all that will matter to Pep Guardiola at the end of the day, especially in the aftermath of being knocked out from the EFL Cup there. So do let me know what your predictions are, and if you're new to the channel, help me hit that subscription button and turn your notifications on so that you can be notified once we put out a new video. Do not forget to comment, like, and share as well for our ardent viewers. Moving on, I did say it will be a very exciting Super Sunday when we have that action between Tottenham Hotspurs versus Aston Villa. Sometimes this is oftentimes a very high scoring fixture and both teams tend to score. Usually the home team loses. I do not know why, although last season but one, that is the 2022-2023 campaign, Aston Villa did beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs home and away. So in the last 5 meetings between the two sides, Aston Villa have come out the better side, winning 3 of those fixtures, while Tottenham won the other 2. No draws have been recorded in the last 5 meetings between these two sides. So usually there is a winner. But like I did mention, I don't know, for some reason, the home team is oftentimes beaten, given by the trend of those last 5 results. And then as far as current form goes, Tottenham have won 3 of their last 5 and lost the other 2, while Aston Villa have only won 2 of their last 5 in terms of their current form and drawn the other 3. So that's the kind of form in which they come into this particular game. One would think that the victory against Manchester City brings them into this picture with good spirits, knowing that they got a very decent result against Manchester City. Pape Matsa scoring a very brilliant strike in that one. Dejan Kulusevski, I thought, was very impressive in that game. Destin Udogie, yes, they did suffer an injury, I think, for Mickey van de Ven, what appeared to be a hamstring. So that wasn't so good for Ange Postecoglou's side, but it's one that they can cope up with. Richarlison is back playing some football. But either way, I did think they applied themselves well. Yovis Bissouma, very, very impressive in that particular fixture. But again, they do come into this fixture on the back of a 1-0 loss against Crystal Palace in that London derby, giving Crystal Palace their first victory of the season. So again, oftentimes you do wonder which kind of Tottenham Hotspur side is going to show up for you. Is it the one that lost against Crystal Palace or the one that beat up against Manchester City? It's a hard one to call. But as hard as those are hard to come by in this particular fixture, it's one that you do think is possible, although I'm going for a 2-1 away victory for Aston Villa in this one. Unai Emery will be wanting to bounce back. And then on Super Sunday still, we'll be completing that action with that big game between Manchester United versus Chelsea at 7:30 p.m. This is a game that comes just in time after Manchester United have announced Ruben Amorim, as we discussed at the start of this video, to be their next new manager. So all Manchester United players will be in high spirits, knowing that their new manager in waiting is somewhere watching them to see how they apply themselves, what he should make of them, what impression do they give him. But while at the same time, Ruud van Nistelrooy will be wanting to leave his mark on this Manchester United side, as short as his interim role will be for the Red Devils. Will he stick around in the wake of the appointment of Ruben Amorim? We are waiting to see, but chances are he could really leave the club. Personally, I wouldn't want him to leave. I would want him to be the bridge between the new guard in terms of Ruben Amorim and his whatever his co-coaching staff will be, as well as the old guard for Manchester United, to try and help link that gap. You'd really look to Ruud van Nistelrooy as the very, very decent person to sort of help bridge that gap in terms of helping Ruben Amorim acclimatize himself with the environment at Carrington, as well as Old Trafford, as well as English football, as well as everything in general as far as the game is concerned in England. So, because this is a very difficult game, once again, we're talking about a Chelsea side that has been quite impressive in the Premier League. I think they've lost 2 games. Never mind that they did lose 2-0 to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. They will still hold themselves in high regard, given how performances have been going well for them on the pitch. So Ruben Amorim will be watching this fixture, hoping that he can also hit the ground running when he takes over at Manchester United, the way Enzo Maresca has literally done at Chelsea. But both managers have different squads. You do feel and think point for point or pound for pound that Chelsea have the better squad. Whether Maresca can mastermind a very good victory against Manchester United is one we are waiting to see. Can Manchester United players rise up like they did in midweek when they were beating up against Leicester City by 5-2? I did think Casemiro was quite impressive in that particular fixture, as well as Alejandro Garnacho. So despite a few missed chances, still you do get the sense that Ruud van Nistelrooy was trying to communicate something that perhaps maybe to the players, maybe to the board, maybe to Erik ten Hag, that this is how I've been telling you that we should play. I thought they played really well. So in any case, this would be a statement win for Chelsea in the aftermath of beating Newcastle by 2-1 last weekend. But recent meetings have not, sent much to say that Chelsea are very capable of beating up Manchester United. Manchester United, having beaten them twice, managed 2 draws, with Chelsea taking only 1 victory in the last 5 Premier League meetings between the two sides. So Enzo Maresca, who has his team clicking, and a Ruud van Nistelrooy, who I don't know what spirits he will be in, but I do hope there will be high spirits, because it is a privilege to manage a team like Manchester United coming into this particular fixture, despite knowing that he won't be the manager to guide Manchester United going forward, that it will be Ruben Amorim taking on the mantle going forward. What is my prediction for this one? It's a hard one to say. I've not really formulated my mind about it. It's the kind of game where you sit and think and say, let me wait for the starting lineups to come out and give my predictions. But by the time they do come out, perhaps it may be a little too late a prediction for you guys. But I'm going for a draw in this particular fixture. Otherwise, do let me know what your thoughts are on those views, on those previews for the different games and all the other games that we did that will formulate a match day 10 of the Premier League. Like I did say, Fulham does come on Monday against Brentford. 11 p.m. will be the kickoff time. Do let me know what your thoughts are, your predictions, your comments, where you agree, where you disagree, what you make of Manchester United's appointment of Ruben Amorim, and anything else of football. Otherwise, stay blessed, and I'll see you next time.